Welcome to today's webinar on optimizing for frequently recurring visits. My name is Scott Gunter, and I'm the Vice President of User Experience Operations here at Usability Sciences. I also wanted to point out that next month we will be covering optimizing a process for asking a series of questions, such as site registration, reservation process, checkout, etc. So the first thing I wanted to walk through is focused on reducing any obstacles for visitors logging in frequently. So on many sites, the login process is unnecessarily cumbersome to access. In some cases, the value of logging is often unclear, so it's the question of what's in it for me. So let's look at the example of Southwest.com. How would you log in from this page? So you'll notice that the login is available in the top right corner, and you notice that they focus the main area of the page around the main function of the site. So it's important to ensure that the login path is clearly visible and to seamlessly integrate that into the flow of the page or of the visit. So for example, in the Southwest case, the check your flight status will eventually require you to log in within the flow of that process. Also ensure the benefits for registering and logging in are clearly highlighted and targeted to the visitor. As you will see in this example for Amazon.com, they use some terminology in here in a statement to say sign in to get personalized recommendations. So this tries to reinforce to the visitor the benefits for registering. The next thing we'll look at is in regards to entering the login information should be extremely efficient. So on sites such as Facebook.com, where the login is practically required, the physical data entry should be transparent. Some sites, as you can see in this example, such as MySpace, require users to click first to enter their login information. So things to consider in solutions to this problem is if the user is not logged in, the cursor should always default to the username field or to the password field if the email or login field is pre-populated. In other words, don't ask them to make an extra click into the field. It should already be the active field. Once the user is logged in, consider defaulting the cursor to the search field or the next available open text field on the page. If you really want people to log in, the username and password should be available and visible above the fold. After the password is entered, allow the enter key to initiate the login process. Also, allow visitors to decide if they want to store both the username and or password or just the username to make this process more efficient. You also notice in a lot of these examples displayed here, the Remember Me option that is found should be accessed after or presented after the password field. In the Facebook's example, you notice that it's above or before the login field. You notice in this example from CityCard that the login, the Remember My ID, is in between the user ID and password. The problem with that is if somebody were to tab from user ID after typing their user ID and then going to the password field and to start typing, they would start typing thinking they were entering a password, only to find out and look up at the screen that actually they're sitting on the Remember My ID focus. So as you can see in the Twitter example that they've placed the Remember Me after the username and password, which is what we're recommending. Another method to conserve screen real estate is what Avis.com is doing that I'll show you on the next slide. You'll notice that they have the login link presented at the top of the page. However, They optimize the screen real estate by displaying the full log information box on hover. So you notice if you hover over the login link, then this box appears with the username and password field displayed without having an additional page load or then taking the user to the next login page. It's displayed there, thus conserving real estate and making the process more efficient. So if you must have a dedicated login page, make it worthwhile. So ideally, the login should be available from the home page. Sometimes we understand this is not always viable. In this situation, provide a true value for this page. So if we consider the layout of the AA.com example, you'll notice that the login page is functional, but not very useful. A lot of real estate on the left side of the page is wasted by instructions that folks are not going to read. Their focus is going to be drawn into the functional aspects of this page, which it does well. One of the sites that we feel handles this very well is Salesforce.com. One of the things that they do on the login page in order to create ultimately more value and to make it worthwhile for the visitor coming to log in, a couple of things that they do. One is you notice here that it reminds you if your caps lock is on when you're entering in your username or password. Same as we mentioned on the previous slides, the cursor should always default to the password field and allow the user to at least store their username. It should also include a button, not a link to sign up or register. You notice in the example on AmericanAirlines.com, the link to sign up, or the method to sign up is a link that blends in with the page, as there are other similar links on the page. So the weighting of that is not visually enhanced. Whereas in the Salesforce example, they have a red button very clearly called out to sign up now. Also, within that login page, use the real estate to provide quick access to tips, best practices, FAQs, forums, etc. As you'll notice here on the right side that Salesforce does, 150 service best practices, how do you stack up? So utilize that space to provide updates and information to your visitor. Where possible, ensure that the login is easy and simple. In this case, login.salesforce.com takes you to the login page. Where possible, suggest making a bookmark for this page within that login screen. And lastly, facilitate common login issues. So you'll notice on the Salesforce example in the bottom left corner that they mentioned if you have problems with your login, where might you go to get help, to understand. Also a reminder that the Salesforce employees will never ask for your login information. So use it from an administrative perspective as well. So the next topic is provide some level of value or functionality without fully logging in. Some sites require a password before providing any level of personalized experience. For Pandora.com, which is a online internet radio site, part of their success is driven by the ability of listening to my music as soon as the page loads. So it offers a personalized experience without having to log in every time to receive that. Other sites such as LinkedIn provides an effective balance between providing immediate information without requiring password validation each time. So obviously, the ability to act on this is ultimately dependent on the content of your site. So our recommendation is to evaluate your site, evaluate your visitors to determine if the equilibrium of pre-login content is an option that you can deploy on your site. As a general rule, we've found that if a visitor is forced to log in to view even the most trivial of information, ultimately your usage rates will be lower. Understandably, there are going to be some actions such as changing your password, entering in purchase information or billing information will require password validation. If those situations are required, then ensure that that's a seamless process. And lastly, provide an easy recovery when a session times out. A common best practice that we see in our clients is to automatically log out a session after X minutes of inactivity, such as on a banking site or anything that might store financial information. Although this can reduce the likelihood for visitors to return to the site, so it's really important to adhere to the recommendations that we'll talk about. So if we consider this screenshot from an online bank website, USA.com, this is a page that is displayed 10 minutes after inactivity. Do you see anything wrong? They've done a good job first of displaying promotional things such as to add value to the visit. They give you the statements that indicate why you were logged off. But what they're missing is an actual login field so that if a person was logged off, they can come back here and enter that username and password very quickly. The only method to do that now is for them to go up into the top right corner and click log on, so that you could reduce and encourage people to come back. Another example from AA.com is the message they've used when when a visit has timed out. As you'll notice, it's safe to say that invalid state error is probably not the best use of terminology on a logout page. So be very mindful of the language used to ensure that folks aren't turned off by the experience and have an easy method to recover. So one of the solutions is provide a clear prompt for you are about to be logged off in 1 minute, 30 seconds, based on inactivity. If you are auto-logged out, the resulting page should have the username and password immediately visible with the cursor ready, just as we spoke to on the USA.com example. Once they are re-signed in, try to facilitate returning them to their last known location or document. Naturally, any work should be autosaved, such if they were adding something to their blog or to a blog entry, responding to an email. Try to autosave that information when they are logged off, so that when they come back in, they can pick up where they left off. And if it's an e-commerce site, use this page for displaying specials to entice them back into the store in a similar method that USA.com has done by displaying the different values and features of doing business with USAA. That concludes the webinar on optimizing for returning visitors. If you have any questions or would like to learn more about what Usability Sciences offer, you can contact Tom Cherry at the email address and phone number provided on the page. Thank you.